Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the second half of our doubleheader tonight. In our first show, George Eichhorn and I had an opportunity to talk some football with Inside the Pigskin. Tonight, the night crew consists of Eric Katz. Welcome back, Eric.
Good to be back. Thanks, Scott.
George Eichhorn, round two of
Round two,
two.
ready to go. Baseball, you got to love it.
Jordan Long, welcome back.
Thanks for having me, Scott.
You're very welcome. Always a pleasure. And last but not least, a man that's been traveling around the world, but I'm glad he found his way back to our set. Warren Brewster, the former Philadelphia Philly. Welcome back, Warren.
Thank you very much, Scott. Great to be back and nice and rested and ready to go.
You look rested, and the way you're logging on to these shows better, you got this thing down to a novice. I like that
That's
guy.
right.
You talk about progress. Mr. Warren Brewster is it. All right. So with that said, our lead topic will be tonight the teams with the biggest improvement from 2022 to 23 in the first half of the season. Cincinnati Reds. Mind you, this is the first half. We're not talking about what's transpired the last few days. But the first half, the Cincinnati Reds are at plus 16, Arizona Diamondbacks plus 12, Texas Rangers plus 11, Miami Marlins plus 10, Baltimore Orioles plus 8, Tampa Bay Rays plus 7. And by the way, of course, the Marlins just got swept by the Orioles over the weekend. So, Eric, which one of these impresses you the most?
Definitely the Reds. I know that I did not have them contending this year. I had them picked probably either just ahead of the Pirates or behind the Pirates. But it's all about the Elly De La Cruz factor. He's come up, and that offense just woke up. You gotta give it to Spencer Steer, who's kind of settled in nicely in the lineup. Just go grab some starting pitching, and they'll be right there in the playoff window.
What about you, George?
Mine's going to be a tie, I guess, between Cincinnati and Arizona. I agree with what Eric said. De La Cruz, I mean, what a dynamic ball player. Jeez, that throw he made from third base last night, I was watching that one, and just dynamic. You know, the Cincinnati fans have been struggling. Yeah, struggling. Yeah, the fans and the team has been struggling for such a long time, but I think it's a breath of fresh air. I'm happy for them. They're a great franchise. They're a great baseball town. And, of course, Arizona. I mean, here's another one that has really come around and really played some really great ball. And when I see teams like this succeeding, I wonder about, how come it's taken the Detroit Tigers so long? But that's another discussion for another day. I won't get into that right now. But I'm glad to see teams that have been building now trying the fruits of fruition, are coming forward now.
What about you, Jordan?
I have to go with Arizona. I mean, you look at who's in that division with you thought San Diego or LA, the Dodgers were going to take control of that division. But no, Arizona's, they're in first place. They're playing great ball. I never thought they would contend. If I would have guessed, I would have thought that they would be a little bit ahead of the Rockies. But I didn't see them, contending at all. And they're showing that they have great pitching, they great hitting, and they're showing that they are the contenders in the National League West division.
Okay, what about you, Warren?
Well, you can't help but be impressed with Elly De La Cruz. I mean, he is sitting the game on its ear. He's going to do some things that no one's ever done before, which is fun. I mean, you see a Shohei Ohtani who's hitting and pitching, and Cruz with the speed that he has, the arm that he has, the ability, the tools he has is just going to elevate Cincinnati. I think he's elevated that ball club since he got there. And I like to see young influxes of teams, young talent like Cincinnati has. The young arms they have are just phenomenal. They've really worked at developing some live young arms, and that's going to keep them in the race all year. And you can't help but love what Arizona's done. I'm a San Francisco Giants fan, but I love to see teams bring young players up, give them the opportunity, and all of a sudden they take off and they grow in a hurry. And that's all it is when you're playing in the big leagues, this confidence is 99% of the game. Once you do a couple things and you realize you belong there, then you just take off as a player.
Well, I had to stay with the Miami Marlins for crying out loud. Don Mattingly out, Skip Schumacher. I didn't know what we were going to get with this guy, but he's done a pretty good job. Sandy Alcantara obviously hasn't pitched as well as the Cy Young award, but we're getting performances from other guys that are stepping up. Braxton Garrett's a guy. Yuri Perez came up for a little while, and Jesus Luzardo. So, I like the Marlins. Luis Arias. Now, I know that he went 1 for 5 last night. His average has dipped to 378, which isn't bad, but still, they produced 2 All-Stars. And I didn't know where we were really going to be going. Kim Ming made a lot of changes this year. And when you change a manager and flip around a lot of that roster, Miguel Rojas, you'll trade a leader in the clubhouse away. Yet this team, they like each other. The clubhouse is close knit. I got to stay with the Marlins. I really do. And I'll be curious to see how this all plays out. That if we can continue to maintain some consistency, not base everything based on the first few games, but should the Marlins get in the postseason, they could be a tough out. So, all right.
Proven that in the past by winning 2 World Series without.
That's true, Warren. Yeah, but
they won a division championship. Yeah, so I mean, when you get in the playoffs, it's 0-0. Everybody's on an even field.
Yeah, excellent point, Warren. Because they did get in as a wild card team twice, and they won it all. And
right.
Even during COVID-19 year 2020, we still managed to get a first round win over the Cubs. So
right,
we'll go from there. All right, onwards we go. The LA Angels said there is no way they will trade Shohei Ohtani to the Dodgers. Eric, do you believe that?
I 100% believe that, because why would you want to trade him to your crosstown team for him to come back and torture you for a little bit? I know that Ari Moreno is content. I know he's wanting to listen to offers, but he's very content with keeping him because, number one, Ohtani not only are the Angels, at least they're kind of in the playoff window, and I know they're just outside the wild card, but also Ohtani brings in bucks. People who are not baseball fans go and see this guy. People who are like the Angels, obviously, and follow the Angels, obviously see him. Visiting fans want to see him. This man transcends baseball fans all around the world. Heck, they even play his games on TV in Japan. The fact that this guy has eyeballs all over the world on him in many different countries, as well as people coming out to the Big A. I mean, I can't blame Ari Moreno for not wanting to trade him.
Well, you, George.
Yeah, the Angels, I think, about 5.5 out of that last wild card spot right now, and I can't blame them. Of course, you don't want it to go to a crosstown rival. The Mets and Yankees, you got that situation in Chicago too, and and a little bit between Houston and the Rangers. But I really think that. I just don't think they're going to be able to keep him. I think he wants to explore other things. We know he wants to play for a winning team. And unfortunately, that's not the case with the Angels on a consistent basis. And with the injury to Mike Trout, that hasn't helped at all either. I do think that he will be moved, but I'm not quite sure if it's going to be in the American League or National League. Who knows? I mean, it's got to be a team that knows they can make him a good offer in the offseason to try to keep him, because you're not going to want to give up to rent, even if it is as great a talent as he. You're not usually renting a guy and then you have no hopes of ever re-signing him. I mean, over the winter. So I think it'll be a team that's a contender that he might go to.
Let's go to the chat room real quickly, okay? And I like this comment. George, please read it.
Sure, Anthony. Thank you for being in our chat room. The Angels will gladly pay $1 billion plus for 2 to 3 players to be a sub 500 team.
That sounds like how the Marinos do business.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay, go ahead, Jordan. Take it from there.
I do think that Ohtani will be traded at some point. I don't think it will be to the LA Dodgers because, like Eric said, why would you want to, and George said, why would you want to give it to your crosstown rival? Again, I'm agreeing with George. I don't know if he's going to go to the American League or the National League. I do know the Angels are going to take phone calls. It's just a matter of what deal is going to be right for them. But I don't think he's going to go to the Dodgers because it doesn't make sense to go to your crosstown rival.
Well, you, Warren.
Well, I totally agree. I don't see any way that the Angels would ever trade him to the Dodgers. That would be, that'd be stabbing yourself in the back. Yeah, that's and still, like you said, they're only 5 games out of the wild card. You get in the wild card, you never know what's going to happen. I can tell you from experience, our 1980 team, we struggled until the middle of August, went 35-7 down the stretch and got hot in the playoffs, won the World Series. Washington Nationals did that in 2019. Phillies went to the World Series last year as the 6th seed. It happens. It seems like the wild card teams are the teams that have the advantage now, that because you win a division and all of a sudden you're not playing games that really matter. And if you're playing games the last week of the season that matter and you're under pressure, then you flip the page and you keep going right the next week in the playoffs. So there's nothing new, nothing different. All of a sudden, a team that wins by, like Atlanta's got a huge lead. If they win by 10 games, they don't play an important game for at least 2 weeks. And that hurts you. It's it's the psychological part of the game where you've got to be in the game and you can't relax. And you get a big lead and you have a tendency to relax a little bit and not put forth 100% effort. And that's what you've got to do. You've got to be nose to the grindstone every day. And to me,
Good point. Yeah.
The Angels are, they've struggled with their pitching, but they've got Rendon, they've got Trout, they've got some great pieces. If they can ever just put it together for a 4-week, 6-week period, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, you know what this had?
I would be the last. It would be just absolutely desperation to trade him unless you get a huge package, or for the next 5 years, you're going to turn that organization into a contender. Then that would be a different story.
Yeah, excellent points, Warren, all the way around. You know what this situation has in makings for me? Number one, it'll be a rental if they trade him. So you wonder what the haul is going to be for a rental. But this reminds me a little bit when Brett Favre left the Packers, took a side. He went over to the Jets and he wanted to play for the Vikings and ultimately wound up with the Vikings. That's what this reminds me of. So Ohtani will get to the Dodgers, but he's going to have an extra area code in between, and then he'll wind up back in Southern California. So if I were Shohei, I'd put your stuff in storage because you ain't going to stay there very long. And if you're on the metropolitan LA, you won't even have to move anyway. So it doesn't make any. This has Brett Favre, Minnesota Vikings written off. Go ahead, Eric.
I don't think it's that because number one, the Packers are smart there. Like why trade Favre to a division rival for him to torch you for two times?
Exactly. You just made my point for me.
And
so they traded him to the Jets, and Favre wound up there anyways. You just made my point. Thank you very much, Eric.
I want to say though, don't forget about the Seattle Mariners. Okay, they're a dark horse to land them because several people from Japan have played over there. They have Ichiro on speed dial. He can come and talk to them about what it's like playing there, whatever. Because Ichiro was a star there, and which obviously Ohtani is a much bigger star than as big of a star as Ichiro was. Ohtani is a much bigger star, and I know Seattle wants to win that first ring. So I really believe Seattle is ultimately going to be the one to get him.
You know what? They made a great recruiting pitch during the All-Star game for him, didn't they? So, yeah, you know what? Eric, you make a lot of valid points that, the Seattle Mariners have a track record with Ichiro Suzuki and the Japanese fan base. I give you that. I don't think Japan's all that far from Tokyo, is it? I don't even know what the
he could go over. He could go home on an off day and then come back.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's that short, but okay. Okay, everybody get their last word on this one?
Yep.
All right, onwards we go. Well, we'll stay in the international theme a little bit as MLB released a very interesting international schedule. So let's talk about the MLB World Tour or Spring Training Series, March 9th, 10th, from Estadio Cosiki Domingo. I don't know how I did on the pronunciation, probably as good as anybody that would try. Tampa Bay versus Boston. You have the Seoul Series, March 20th, 21. Will open regular 2024 regular season. You have the Dodgers and the Padres. The first ever regular season series games in Korea. Mexico City Series on April 27th, 28th, Colorado against Houston. I'm sure you're looking forward to that one, huh, Jordan? And then the London Series. You have June 8th and 9th. You have the Mets and the Phillies. So international baseball, Eric Katz. What do you think?
I love it. Especially with how successful the London series has gone. Also, being able to put it in a baseball crazed country like the Dominican Republic, it's a perfect location for it. Especially, it'll attract people to go fly there, especially because it's significantly warmer there than the upper Midwest in March. But it's great for the game to be able to kind of put it all over the world and kind of grow the game, which is something I think Rob Manfred has. I gotta give my hats off to him, even though it's probably the only thing I'll give him a hats off for. But I think it's perfect how they're playing it in multiple countries. They used to never do that, but now we got baseball almost on every continent.
George?
Yeah, I agree. Eric, you summed it up very nicely. I couldn't believe that baseball has waited this long to go to Seoul. Obviously, they've played games before in Japan. So I'm really excited about that one. The Dodgers and Padres going to Seoul, South Korea. And as you mentioned, Scott, Mexico City, they're in the quasi rotation. Of course, we know that MLB has gone to Mexico quite a few years, so that's good. London, yep. I mean, you nailed that one, Eric. I mean, that's a great city. People love to visit that. We saw how successful the National Football League has been with their London series. A lot of games involving the Jacksonville Jaguars have been there, and now, of course, the NFL has expanded to Germany quite a bit. And then that Dominican Republic series. Again, I'm happy for that. All the things right. Manfred pushed the right buttons on this. He got the all the clubs involved agreed to these trips. My Detroit Tigers are not on any of these trips, but that's okay. We're sending the Red Wings to, I believe, Sweden in the regular season this year. But yeah, it's good. Manfred has finally got some things going for the game in a good sense here internationally.
All right, Jordan, I turn it over to you.
Well, you look at the success of the World Baseball Classic, you look at that, seeing how many of those countries were playing in it. Now you're looking at trying to expand the game. And honestly, what Eric and George have said, I think it's a great thing to expand the game of baseball. I like where they're going internationally. I mean, you look at the London series with the Cubs and the Cardinals, it was successful. It'll be successful with the Mets versus the Phillies. Mexico City, again, that's not I mean, that's a big part of, baseball is there's a lot of, especially for the Rockies with Vinny Castilla being there. And then you look at the Soul Series, I think they're just growing this game, and I have no problem with it. I think it's great to grow the game of baseball internationally.
Okay, Warren?
Oh, I love it. I think it's great. I loved playing anywhere in the world I could play. It was fun. I was fortunate enough my rookie season in spring training, we went down to Puerto Rico and played a 2-game series against the Pirates. My second year, we played in Dominican, a 3-game series against the Cardinals. I played in Venezuela one winter. I played in Mexico at the end of my career. I loved playing anywhere, and I think it's great for the game. I mean, it's becoming an international game. You see what basketball has done and how many great talents there are. Now it's a world game, and it would be awesome if the baseball got that way. I mean, all it does is make the game better. And
Right.
that's what it should become, a world game where every country can contribute.
Yeah, good points. And then I'll mention our information, but this is all a product of the World Baseball Classic. And now you see this
Right.
being a carryover. I want to just point out that 108 Stitches Baseball Talk is being broadcast around the world. The audio version of the show can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcast. Please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for 1,000 subscribers. Please also comment, like, and share the broadcast. Want to be a guest? No problem. Participate in the chat room is one way to do it, or send your topic ideas to southfloridatribune@gmail.com. If you want to advertise cost efficiently, call me at 954-304-4941. We broadcast live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Website's www.southfloridatribune.com. Our Twitter information is at Tribune South. Candy Ebbling is behind the scenes working on the website wherever we need her. Coming up later this summer, the Motor City Man Mouse Show will be debuting on the Eagle Corp Media Studios in Boca Raton, owned by Dr. Edwin Hernandez, who will, by the way, be my co-host. We'll keep you posted. The Eagle Corp is a technology-based company, and I am the president of broadcasting for the Eagle Corp / Media Studio. So I'm trying to build this podcasting thing from the ground up. And I also now am in the process of writing a book, adjusting the new media. So that I'll be working on that, give you more updates as well. So yeah, as I mentioned, what we're seeing internationally, I think is really mainly a result of the World Baseball Classic. Well, we've talked about home run derbies in the past, and we're probably going to talk about it again. I'm going to throw something at you guys a little bit different that I actually found up. According to the size up, Korea's bunt derby is electric. You ever heard of a bunt derby? So, all right, Eric, I'll give you first crack at this.
I mean, I did see the video of the bunt derby. It was actually kind of entertaining. It was almost like it was golf, except you were bunting to a certain target. I'd love it if they brought it to the MLB All-Star Game because, bunting is kind of a lost art in baseball nowadays. But in, Korea, Japan, they do it really, really well to the point where I saw in the World Baseball Classic, Japan's manager let his batter bunt on 2 strikes. I mean, that takes skill. And he actually successfully put it on the ground. But I would love to see a bunt derby because home run derby is essentially batting practice. Like I can just go to the ballpark, see the away team take hacks every now and then. But yeah, a bunt derby. Love the idea.
George.
Yeah, when I first heard of that, I was thinking, what? But let's face it, guys, this is an art, and Warren, you can back us up on this. This is an art that so many teams and so many players have just forgotten about. The bunting was such a great part of the game over the years, especially in the years that Warren and others like him had played. And I mean, now it's just, sort of taken for granted. I mean, I know they go through the routine of doing it in practice and down in the spring, Arizona and Florida. But let's be honest, there's very few good bunters on any one of our teams in the major leagues these days. So yeah, it was fun seeing that in Korea that for their All-Star festivities, and I think it'd be a nice addition to our All-Star game as well. And furthermore, I'd like to see more bunters in the majors.
Okay, Jordan.
Well, if you look at the All-Star game as a whole in the United States, the only skill competition is really the home run derby, and it is starting to get watered down. If you look at other sports, especially like the NBA, they have their All-Star Saturday night, same with the NHL. I would like to see more skills in Major League Baseball. I wouldn't mind a bunt derby to see who is the best bunter. And like George said, it's a lost art. It'd be nice to see who can bunt the best. I'm sure there would be All-Stars that would want to do that. So why not bring it to the All-Star game to see who the best bunter is?
Nobody better than a guy that played the game who probably was asked to do it a few times. Warren.
Yes, coming through the minor league system with the Phillies, we stayed at the ballpark. We were at the ballpark from 9 to 5 every day during spring training. And what's the pitchers going to do? They put bats in our hands, put a cage, threw an iron mic out there, and we bunted for like 2 hours. We would bunt and bunt and bunt because and it's a lost art. And it's sad that it's a lost art because I prided myself on being able to bunt. I couldn't hit at all, but I could bunt. I could get the ball down. I'd learned, they taught us in the minor leagues how to do it in the proper technique. Ruben Amaro Sr. was our bunting instructor in the minor leagues, and he taught us the proper way to bunt. And I was 4 for 5 or 3 for 4 on moving people over, and especially back when pitchers were hitting in the National League. Are you kidding me? You got it. Your 8th place hitter gets on, and you can't move him over with less than 2 outs. There's no excuse for that. I mean, you're costing yourself a chance to win a ball game, get a run that can win you a ball game. And that's what bothers me. That really, I'm more for the DH now, just because hitting for a pitcher became a lost art, and bunting definitely has become a lost art in the game. And more power to something like that to have a bunting exhibition and turn it into a something that they can do at the All-Star game. It just improves the game, and it gives kids, it's another way of, like the Ellie De La Cruzes that can fly. If you teach him to bunt and put the ball on the ground, they're not going to throw him out. And it changes the whole dynamic. It goes back to what the Cardinals did in the 80s. They realized how big, they had a big outfield. They had to cover a lot of ground, so they got some flyers out there, and then they used the speed on the bases, and they won a lot of ball games just by because speed never goes into a slump. That's the one thing they always told us in the big leagues is the speed never goes into a slump.
I will tell you, back in the 70s when I played Little League Baseball, I was a really good defensive catcher. I really, really was. That's what probably kept me in the lineup the whole time. Offensively, not so good. But the only way I was legitimate to look at was number one, I got a lot of hit by pitches, a lot of walks, and I did learn how to bunt, and I learned how to bunt well. So if you can't go ahead and get a high batting average, you might as well sacrifice so you don't have too low of a batting average. So, when you look at the NHL and you look at the NBA, they do have lots of different skills competitions. I certainly would love to see the bunt derby. I really would. I mean, why not? Can you do anything wrong, anyways, by adding a skill like we've all said? There is a lot
Right.
of people that can do anything wrong with it all. All right. Well, speaking of the bunt derby, let's recap last week's home run derby for a few people that were not on, and I'll let everybody talk about it again. Father and son home run derby champs Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and his dad were the first father and son combo to do it. Eric, why don't you give me your overviews on what you thought of that whole about that accomplishment for the Guerreros?
I mean, good for them. I personally like senior better than junior, but I think the fact that those two just are unbelievable players. I mean, Vlad Senior's resume speaks for itself, and Vlad Junior probably, when it's all said and done, will be in the Hall of Fame. I think that the fact that father and son were both able to do it, it just shows you just how skilled those two guys are.
George?
Yeah, hats off to them. That's great. Anytime a father can see his son perform to that kind of level, it's just I'm sure, a fantastic experience. Whatever they do, even if it's sports or non-sports, could be playing the violin, could be writing a book. I mean, but a father and a son, or a mom and daughter performing to that level is just outstanding. I do know that I'm not a big fan of ESPN's coverage. I know that they do the split screen a lot, and sometimes it's difficult to trace the distance of the balls when they're hit, because they're doing the split screen an awful lot. I get it. I mean, they want to see the face, the reaction, but of the player, the batter. But some of that has been tougher for me to follow, maybe because I'm getting old. My eyesight is going a little bit, but it was a good event. But you can see, like I believe Jordan referred to it earlier. I mean, there's been a lot of, a lot said about this. It's not as great as it used to be. We're not seeing all the great hitters, the great home run hitters. Some of them beg off. Some, of course, I know are injured, as in Judge. But, over the years, you've seen a tail off of a lot of the top home run hitters not wanting to play because, it throws some people off their game for, several games or weeks sometimes afterwards.
Right.
But that being said, yes, I'm happy for Junior and for his father as well.
Well, Anthony Bianchi agrees with George. He hates the split screen as
Oh,
well.
thank you, Anthony.
Yeah, he does. All right. Well, with that said, okay, Jordan.
I'm happy for Vladimir Guerrero Jr., but I have to agree with George. I didn't get a chance to watch this All-Star game, but I know, or I should say the home run derby. But in years past, I have to agree with George. I don't like the split screen. They'll throw a ball and he'll hit it, and you're like, where did he go? Next thing you know, it's in the stands. I don't like ESPN doing that. It'd be better just to follow the ball rather than them talking and having them watch it. It's just, I don't like the split screen. I think ESPN needs to do a little bit better coverage of it. But overall, like George said, and I said a while ago, it's just watered down. You don't see the best hitters doing it, and I get it. Some of them don't want to ruin their swing in the second half, but at some point we need to see the bigger hitters do it. I understand, Aaron Judge was hurt, but still, I'd like to see more stars do it.
And Warren Brewster has a final word on this.
No, I agree. I mean, it's number one, it's great that Vlad Jr. won the home run derby, and a father-son have both now won first time ever. I mean, that's great. That's great for the game. But you're right. I'd like to see the top home run hitters, the guys that are leading the league. They should be the top four in each league. Should be the guys that have 1, 2, 3, and 4. Those should be the first choices. And just like they do. Like with the pitchers, if they pitch on Sunday, then they're not eligible to pitch on Tuesday. So now they're backing everybody off and pitching them Friday or Saturday, so they're eligible and can throw an inning at the All-Star game. And to me, the home run derby, it does take a lot out of you. It's a drain for a guy to go up there and swing hard for 3 minutes. It really is taxing. And guys they lose their stroke. They can get carried away with it if like I play with Mike Schmidt. He was a line drive hitter. He would have been perfect for the home run derby because he wouldn't have to change his swing. He just hit line drives out of the ballpark. And especially depending on the ballpark that it's being played in, it'd be very simple for him. He played pepper with the left center field fence in Philly. And, so you have a guy like him, it wouldn't affect his stroke. Now, the guys that are launch angle guys, now that has a tendency to really might mess them up. And I've heard in the past that guys have had tough second halves because they did the home run derby and they screwed themselves up. So, the home run hitters are pretty apprehensive on, am I going to take a chance of losing my swing? But then again, on the other hand, I believe that Vlad Jr. got $1 million for winning that. So it's the first time they increased the prize package from $725 up to $2.5 million, and the winner got $1 million. So I think that might change some players' ways of thinking, especially the younger guys that are, there's a lot of young talent guys that are launching balls coming out of the minor leagues that are they're going to be big time talents in the future, and to give a couple of those young guys a shot to see what they can do it'd be outstanding, and get their name up and out in front, and people being able to see them when they're young talents.
Well, you know what? Vladimir Guerrero Jr. needed one more home run, and they couldn't get it in the All-Star game. American League lost 3-2. So, but you know what? I'm piggybacking off of Anthony Bianchi. There's nothing better than Chris Berman back all into the upper deck.
Yeah.
And you know what? I have been on ESPN for the longest time. I'm going to say it again. When you let veterans like Bob Lee, Chris Berman, and the list goes on, that is a bad situation. Chris Berman was synonymous with the home run derby. ESPN has taken the fun out of watching a lot of sports by removing the people that helped bring it to where it is now. And Chris Berman is an icon in a lot of ways, but there was nobody that I enjoyed listening more than on the home run derby than Chris Berman. So Anthony Bianchi, great minds think alike. You just joined the GMTA Think Alike group, and Anthony, if you haven't subscribed to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel, please do so. You might find yourself on here with the rest of us. So, but I love that comment. Great job, buddy. All right, last topic of the night, and I'll leave it up to you guys if you have any parting shots. But Pittsburgh Pirate #1 pick Paul Skenes agreed to a $9.2 million bonus. The slot value was mandated at $9,721,000, which surpasses the Tigers' Spencer Torkelson in 2020 at $8.4 million. All right. Well, Eric, what do you think? Paul Skenes, the Pirates anteed up and they paid.
I mean, that's what happens when you draft a Boris client. Boris, he's been going for years upon years upon years upon upping the ante in terms of what draft picks get paid, to the point where teams will avoid talented players just so they don't have to deal with Scott Boris. Well, the Pirates decided to go through Scott Boris, and you ultimately have to empty the bag on the table, and that's exactly what happened.
George?
Yeah, Skenes was rated right at the top there. What a great college career he had. Everybody's high on him. Obviously, Pittsburgh can use his talents in starting pitching. Every team could use that, right? I'm not surprised that they spent that much on him. Obviously, I knew it was going to be a tough contract to sign, but this kid's got a lot of potential. He packs a lot into the game of pitching, the art of pitching, as they say, and I'm really excited about his future in Major League Baseball. I hope he has an outstanding career.
Jordan?
I'm not surprised at the value of what it was, because, like you were saying, Scott, that's the value of what it was going to be, regardless of the draft pick. The thing is, though, I hope he has a good career. I don't want to look back and say, oh, it was the #1 draft pick, he was a bust, but at least he has $9 million to his pocket now.
Okay. Warren?
Right. Yeah. Well, from what I've read and heard, they said he is the top pitching talent to come into the draft since Steven Strasburg. So so the money there is well spent. If that's a matter of fact, if that pans out, then it's money well spent. And like George said, every team needs pitching. A starting pitcher, obviously, he's got a future as a number 1 or number 2 starter. So every team needs that. There's not a team in baseball that couldn't use a number 1 or a number 2. You look at the Mets with Scherzer and Verlander, and they're struggling under 500, and they got 2 of the best 1-2 punch in baseball. So you can never have enough pitching, no matter what. That's the name of the game, pitching and defense. That's wins championships. And to have a young kid like that, hopefully he's worth it. And hopefully he flies right through the system and comes right to the big leagues. And on top of that, Scott Morris is an old friend of mine. We played college ball against each other. He went to UOP when I was at Fresno State.
Really?
And then when I was in the minor leagues with the Phillies, he was in the minor leagues with the Cardinals. So I've known Scotty for 45 years.
Wow.
Was he up? Was he still great at negotiating then?
Yes. Yeah, he was. In fact, I was with the White Sox. I just gotten traded to the White Sox, and we were in Oakland, and I was going out after the game and getting a bite to eat, and he's standing next to me with 2 of my teammates, and that's when he started. Yeah, that was September of '82. That's when he was starting to become an agent, and that was the first couple guys that he signed. Niles Nyman, and I can't remember who the other guy was. But they got a couple. He got a couple young White Sox kids, and he was just starting out, and he's revolutionized the game. He's a very unique individual.
Yeah, the only thing I can say is I just hope and pray that Paul Skenes has a much better outcome than Steven Strasburg, because we got all
Right.
saw how well he was coming
Yes,
out.
I mean that's a
Steven
shame.
Strasburg.
It's
Yes.
a shame apparently his career is pretty much over, and that's a shame because he was dynamic when he was on the mound. That first game he had against Pittsburgh was punched out 14 and I had 2 hit shutout. He was just phenomenal.
Big part of that World Series team. I think he had a
Yes.
Cy Young too.
Right.
Yeah.
I think you could probably equate his career to Sandy Koufax.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just it was when he was on the mound, he was something else. He was lightning in a bottle.
Like I said, Sandy Koufax, great example, Eric. But I just hope he obviously from Steven Strasburg. I can only hope it doesn't happen that way. That just ended. But like you said, Eric, he did get a ring, number 1 player. So, anybody want to come up with any parting shots? Eric, do you have anything you want to talk about?
Yeah. Well, I think for Milwaukee Brewers, in order for them to win the Central Division, they need an impact bat, particularly at the DH spot as well as the outfield. They are not, Jesse Winker, who I had as a bounce back candidate, and he was playing in a ballpark he hit very well during his time with the Reds, has just been an absolute bust for them. I'm surprised they don't DFA him, but they need an impact bat right now. I mean, their pitching has been carrying them, and they're off. And Yelich has looked like his old self as of late. But they need an impact bat if they want to secure the Central Division.
George?
Scott, great minds think alike. Remember?
Yeah.
You referred to this young man just a little while ago. His name is Spencer Torkelson of the Detroit Tigers, as you alluded to, that he was a number 1 draft pick. And you know what, fans? Those of you naysayers out there, I think Spencer can say, take that. He hit 2 more home runs tonight. He's got 14 home runs, leads the Tigers in home runs and in RBIs, 51. He's playing some really good first base. He's really improved defensively. And I'll tell you, together with Riley Green and Kerry Carpenter, the Tigers have some young bats and young talent to look forward to. So, again, I know it's easy in hindsight to say, oh, the kid's struggling, or send him down to Toledo, the AAA team. No, the Tigers were persistent. AJ stuck with him, and Scott Harris left him on the big league roster, and now he's paying dividends. Like I said, he's up to 14 homers and 51 ribbies. So congratulations, Spencer Torkelson, and keep up the good work, young man.
Well, Ralph Williams, just to give you a little overview, we have dived into Pittsburgh a little bit, an opportunity to talk about Paul Skenes. You guys did well landing him, much less signing him. Go ahead, Jordan, any parting shots?
Yes, I do. I mean, I have one from the NFL with the Pro Football Hall of Fame announced their 2024 semifinalists for the senior and coaches contributed. Well, two of them are Broncos coaches who should be in. There's Dan Reeves, who coached the Denver Broncos from 1981 to 1992. And that time, the Broncos went 110, 73, and 1. Also, Denver went to 3 Super Bowls. Those 110 wins are second in Broncos history to Mike Shanahan. If you look at Mike Shanahan, who's also up for the Pro Football Hall of Fame as a semifinalist, he went 138 and 86 with the Denver Broncos. Of course, they won 2 Super Bowls. And his overall record, Shanahan's overall record is 170 and 138, which is 13th in NFL history. Now, if I look at that, you have to put Mike Shanahan and Dan Reeves in. I really wish Dan Reeves would have been alive to be put in the Hall of Fame, but hopefully both of them get in soon.
Warren, do you have any closing thoughts?
Yes, I think the second half is going to be electric. I'm excited for all of baseball. There's only Atlanta's kind of run away from everybody and hid, but they'll come down to earth because there's a lot of ebbs and flows, valleys and peaks and valleys during the season, and they've just been on a roll the last couple months. But like George said with Spencer Torkelson, a kid like that, number one pick, there's a lot of pressure on you, and finally, I think he's finally settled in. They've gone, I'm sure they've talked to him over numerous times, just be yourself, just play the game hard. You play the game hard, everything's going to work out for you. And it takes young talent a couple years, a year or two to really settle in and become major contributors, and he has, and it was a matter of time. They all knew he would, and they just stuck with him, which is great. I mean, that just shows what a good organization they have, and the people that are running it know what they're doing.
Yeah.
But I'm excited for the second half of baseball. I think it's going to be a lot of great races. A lot of teams are going to come from second and third, fourth place and overtake the teams that are leading right now. It's going to be, there's a lot of exciting baseball.
Ralph Williams just mentioned moments ago that yes, Guinness did sign a $9 million signing bonus. I should point out too, though, when I had Kevin Anderson, who's the associate athletic director over at Air Force, Guinness did play there, and then he transferred to LSU. So I want to make a note that obviously I began to take notice of Guinness after I had my conversation with Kevin Anderson. I guess the only parting shot I have is I never thought I'd see a 50 and 45 Yankees team in last place in their division. And I never also thought I would see the day that the San Diego Padres and the New York Mets, who spent an awful lot of money, could be sellers. And for that matter, the St. Louis Cardinals are talking about being sellers as well. So I'll put Anthony Bianchi in here. Makes another good point. Second half is going to be fun. Sock it to them Tigers. George Eichhorn will definitely not disagree with you there. So,
Right.
Anthony, you're our MVP tonight because you've been the most active individual in the chat room. As long as you're subscribed to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel, reach out to us and I'll go over the information. We'd love to have you on as a guest. You talk baseball real well. We'd certainly love to entertain the thought of bringing you on. So please sub to our channel if you haven't already. And I'll go ahead and mention our information, and everybody else do it as well. So I might as well lead off here, and then I'll go around the horn. All right, just one more time, 108 Stitches Baseball Talk is being broadcast around the world. The audio version of the show can be heard on iHeartRadio. I'm sorry, my throat there. The audio version of this show can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcast. Please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for 1,000 subscribers. Please also comment, like, and share the broadcast. Want to be a guest? Send topic ideas to southfloridatribune@gmail.com. If you want to advertise cost efficiently, call me at 954-304-4941. We broadcast live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Website, www.southfloridatribune.com. Twitter @Tribune South. Candy Ebling's behind the scenes. Coming up later this summer, the Motor City Mad Mouse Show will be debuting on the Eagle Corp Media Studios in Boca Raton, Florida, owned by Dr. Edwin Hernandez, who, by the way, will be my co-host there. We'll keep you posted. The Eagle Corp is a technology-based company for which I am the president of broadcasting there, and I'll be working on my new book, Adjusting to New Media. Now, here's a guy that we all know is a friend of the show, and you know what? We're going to have to hook you up with him. You ever heard of Mark Persales?
Yeah. Hey, Mark.
No.
We're going to connect you with him. He's one of our friends of the show. He's a real good baseball guy.
Oh, great.
So we're going to connect you with him. With that said, I got my information out there. And, Anthony Bianchi, you made the show a whole lot better with your extreme outstanding participation. Thank you very much, Anthony. We can call you the unofficial sixth host on this show, at least tonight, until we make you like Coca-Cola. You'll be the real thing when you get on here. Love the analogy, not as much caffeine tonight. All right, with that said, we'll let everybody know how they get a hold of you. All right, Eric, lead off.
You can follow me on my Twitter at Sports Team News, or you can find me on my blog at bellyupsports.com, where I'm writing all things baseball.
And Jordan?
You can follow me on Twitter at SportsScoop1. I have a blog that I write Mondays through Thursdays with podcasts on Fridays at sports-scoop.com. Besides being here on 108 Stitches for the South Florida Tribune, I'm on many different shows for the Sideline Sports Network.
And Warren, want to let everybody know how they get a hold of you?
Yes. Number one, I'm a baseball fan, and I love to talk baseball. And thank you guys for letting me join you. And I can be reached at Brewster, BRUSSTAR 40 at gmail.com.
Oh, we enjoy having you on. We're glad you're able to come visit us twice a month. Believe me, you're one of my best guests. We have a lot of good baseball ones. One of my favorite all the time was Mark Littell, for sure.
Yes, great man.
Rest in peace, Mark. He helped us a lot. All right, George, go ahead.
Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air. I authored the book. Scott's in the book too. And the book's available at Amazon, or there's a link at the bottom of my column. I write for the Motor City Tribune under the South Florida Tribune banner, and you can get a link to my book that way. It's a great read. Also, you can reach me at gicorn@yahoo.com and on Twitter at SandGSports99. And as well, you can see me on many of Scott's shows on this network, including the Sports Exchange and Pigskins and this show, of course. I love the baseball show, 108 Stitches. Good to be on with you guys.
What's good about this crew, a nice balance. We have George and I and Warren. Obviously, we can relate a little bit longer. Eric was a mindset of one of us because he knows the game so well. And Jordan, your knowledge of the game is nothing short of impressive as well. I always look forward to your insights when you come on. So that concludes this edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. So I want to thank everybody out there for joining us, their participation in the chat room and so forth. So on behalf of Eric Katz, George Eichhorn, Jordan Long, and Warren Brewster, my name is Scott Morgan, the Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. We will catch you the next time.